Well, I guess this is no longer part of the oil burning Corolla series. This is just us working on the Corolla. There will still be an episode 45 where we'll summarize the series, we'll take a look at the oil filter after the 5,000 mile oil change, we'll scope the cylinders, and we'll do a compression test and maybe a little discussion. But after that, well hands. Oh. Today we're going to enlarge and retap the coil plug holes. And let me just preface this with, I hope we can all learn something from the mistakes I will be making today. Let me just break in right here and say that this part of the video where I'm purchasing these ratcheting wrenches was before a very kind viewer sent me some ratcheting wrenches and something a lot of people in the comments have been harassing me about, needing to polish my headlights. So, Malware in Tennessee 9008, thank you. He sent me this. And need some glasses here. A 10mm Husky ratcheting wrench because I said I lost my 10mm. And I haven't even opened this one yet. A Tecton swivel head ratcheting 10mm wrench. So, Malware in Tennessee. I'm not even going to ask how you got my address, but thank you. Got my M8 by 125 by 30 bolts. So I think what that means is it's 9mm thick and a thread pitch of 1.25 threads every millimeter, and then 30mm long. And a tap to match. Comes with a drill bit, and then this came out of my Harbor Freight tap kit. Get my 10mm wrench, and actually at the same time see what size these are. Looks like a 12. All right, I'm gonna try out my new cobalt wrenches. The swivel. Oh, look at that. It's too fat to fit in between the coil and there. So, might as well use a socket. Just get it off like that. Well, that's good to know. Can't use these things for anything. Show you the difference in the bolts here. Here's what we have now, and that's what we're going to. That's quite a step up, isn't it? Because that looks a lot bigger than I was expecting. There's got to be a bolt in between there, right? Is that 2 more millimeters? Is this an M6 and this is an M8? Will this even fit through there? Ugh. Probably gonna have to drill out the coil a little bit there too. I don't want to weaken my valve cover too much by taking too much meat out of there. And what if these are so long, they go too far? I want to see how much that sticks out. Set that there. How far does that go? Versus how far does that go? Well, we got the hood open. Maybe I should see if I can find some 25s. Okay, so here are a couple of the original bolts. These are M6s, and they've just wallowed out those holes in that aluminum. And I bought these because they were the only size they had close enough, and these were 30 centimeters, which are slightly longer and will end up blowing through the valve cover. So I ended up having to go back and pick up these. These are the only ones I could find, and they're not flange bolts like this. Like you can see, this has a flange on the end of it. These are just hex cap screws, they call them. So I went ahead and got some lock washers to add to that. So we're going to start with this tapered tap Well, actually we're going to start by drilling the holes out with the drill bit, and then we're going to run a tapered tap into it. And after the tapered tap goes in and bottoms out, we're going to run a bottoming tap into it. So this should go all the way to the bottom, or as close as the bolt's going to get to the bottom anyway, and make sure the threads go all the way down instead of stopping, almost a centimeter above the bottom. See the difference in those? Well, let's start with the drill. So now actually before I start drilling, I'm going to put some paper towels in these so we don't get any metal bits inside there. If some metal bits got inside there and we ever pull the spark plugs out and then the metal bits fall inside the cylinders, that would not be good. That could possibly do some catastrophic damage. There's number one. Apparently gonna have to run this on high. That's not gonna work either. I think that bottomed out. That is a lot of metal shards. And I probably got some in the second well there, but run this tapered tap in there. This even fits. Put some drops of oil. I'm just going to start with this on one of these, just to make sure everything works like I think it should. This doesn't fit this handle as well. So I don't even have this tightened on here because I had to jam this up inside. But hopefully it won't be a problem. I actually like to hear the sound of these threads cutting metal. Dope. Might end up having to use some little vice grips on this thing. Don't fit it all. Oh no. Is that still going in? Okay, whew, okay. I was thinking I stripped it again. Alright, I think we're at the bottom. Oh no. That does look like it punched all the way through. Oh no. Well, that's a bummer. Now I need to get all this stuff out of here. And I probably blew it all right down into the valve cover. So now I gotta take the valve cover off. I guess it'd be better to tap these on the bench anyway after the vac, but we'll start taking the valve cover off and we'll get back to it. Yes, I definitely got some metal shavings inside there. You can see it all over the cams, cam lobes and cams. What I want to see is where did this come through? Oh, I was worried I came through here, but no, there's this baffle. So it was somewhat protected. So it was right over here. You can see, maybe if you look hard, a slight raised place right there. That's where it came through. So how do I get all this stuff out of here? Well, I know what I can do with this. I can just spray this whole thing down with carb cleaner, flood it, but this is going to be a little trickier. On the plus side, if I can wash all this down through here with oil, you know, worst case scenario, it'll go down straight into the sump, and then it'll have to come through the filter before it goes through the engine. So the filter will hopefully filter all that aluminum out of there. Another plus side is it is aluminum, and it's not as bad as having steel bits in your engine because it's a softer metal. But then again, you know, it won't be taken out with anything magnetic either. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to wipe up as much of these shards as possible, which isn't many. I mean, you can see some reflection in there, hopefully, but still definitely not ideal. So I did some quick research, and this all can be rinsed down with some brake parts cleaner or carb cleaner. Even says like simple green or degreaser or whatever, because it does all drain down into the sump. But the key is you have to drain the oil after you're finished with this. So gonna have to do another oil change, but better than ruining it, right? So we're just gonna spray everything down. I need a tube on this because there's none underneath the cam lobes, between the cam lobes and the valve buckets. And that actually should be pretty good. So that didn't take much. I don't see any debris left that might cause a problem. We'll go with that. Wipe all this off. And again, I'm going to use a fresh paper towel before I get back in here. And now, really quickly, before any of this starts flash rusting, if that's a possibility, I'm going to squirt all this down with some oil. This is actually a 50 weight motorcycle oil. Why? Just because I had some. I thought that would make a good oil can oil. It's pretty thick. The only time I use oil can oil is at times I probably want stuff to be pretty thick. Alright, so get some around those bearing journals. And now we're going to just rub it on a little more. Wasn't happy with the way that was coating. Like some of it is still drying out, so really crank some on there. Now let's go tap this thing and clean it out. Let's see if these bolts are going to work anyway. Yeah, that should work. I think that's the bottom. Why do we use a tapered tap first? Is to better get the threads started straight. Has more of a guiding end on it. Does better for a first cut. But then we need a bottoming one because if our hole's about as big as our bolt, the tapering one won't have the threads cut deep enough, and so the bolt will never go all the way in. It'll start getting tight before it reaches the bottom of the hole. So that's why we follow up with a bottoming tap, which has the threads cut almost to the very bottom. I actually didn't know the difference between the two, or never even considered it. Didn't know there were two taps like that. There's actually about, I think there's 3 taps at least, maybe more. Let me know in the comments. But I just happened to be watching something where they were tapping something else, and it was unrelated to any research for this. And they talked about needing a bottoming tap. And I was like, oh, I'm going to need a bottoming tap then. So once again, it just worked out at the right time. Saw the right video at the right moment. Be super careful to try to get this in perfectly straight, because it would be a bummer to cross thread a tap. I think that's it. Just double check it. Yep. One more, then we can clean this up, put it back together, and change the oil again. But at least we're through all the oil mileage stuff, so not a big deal. I'm finding lots of WD-40 works as good or better than the oil. There's probably a reason not to use it, but I've seen several other people use it. Doesn't make it right, but makes it less scary. Those bottomed out there. Now, does it matter that this one goes all the way through? I don't think so. I don't think oil is going to come up through this, but if I were worried about it, I could always, squirt a tiny little bit of RTV in there before I put the bolt in. Get it in there straight. All right. I'm going to take this out and hold it over the trash can and spritz it with some brake cleaner. Really good. First, a little air. This is the side where the stuff was. I do not like the smell of brake cleaner. Is rocking on something, because it is. Ooh, I was very close to just cranking that down on that. That feels right. Go grab my torque wrench. I'm gonna torque all these to 6.6 foot-pounds. So barely anything on here. 6.5. Should be good. Start with the middle. I think I'm gonna get a click out of these. The lighter you do it, the less you feel the click. So I don't feel anything. Now that one clicked. That was a click. There's a click. There's a click. There's a click. Of course, where are we? We're not even at 5 pounds. I just don't like that. That feels too tight. And I've done it again. Yeah, I've done it again. If it feels too tight, it probably is too tight.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. How was your Christmas?
Good, how about yours?
Oh, great.
Did you have to work through it?
Christmas Eve, yeah. That was the only day.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Take care.
You too.
These just don't feel like they're gripping good. They just feel like they're just barely setting on there. I need to squeeze the electrode. Does this come off? Yeah. There's just like a little spring in there. It's like nothing to squeeze. There's not like a little clampy thing that locks onto the top of the spark plug. There's just this that touches the top of it. Well, let's look at another one. So I'm just gonna pop this off. See if we're looking at the same thing. Yep. Just a little spring there that touches the top of the electrode. Well, no wonder it's a good idea to bolt them down. They don't actually lock themselves on. It'd be good if I turned it the right way. Put a lock washer on there. And of course, we're probably gonna have to drill out this hole in the coil as well. All right, well, if it's not one thing, it's another. So I got my Ryobi bits. I actually like a lot of the Ryobi tools, especially like bits and drivers and things. I find they're as good or better a lot of times than like Milwaukee and Makita. In fact, I have these Phillips head bits that have like this diamond grit impregnated into the tips, and it makes them not slip, and they last a ton longer than the more expensive Makita and Milwaukee bits. So the one we used to tap obviously was no bigger than this hole because it leaves the hole a little small so that you can actually have room to still cut threads. So we need to find something that's slightly bigger than this hole because it almost fits. And I think that's going to be the one. 5/16. Hopefully I can hold on to this so you can see it. I really should put this in a vise or something. Yep. This is actually now my wife's studio. That just fits. You can hear it. So I'll just put the rest of them in here and drill them out really quick. I'll do this one this way. Found you got to get the drill going before you start going in. Otherwise it does that, which it does regardless, but more inclined to. There we go. All right, let's try this again. I am going to put a little dab of RTV down in that one. No, I'm not going to do that because I still have to go back and pull the spark plugs later anyways, because I know a lot of people want to see a compression test on this thing after the rebuild. All right, it slides in. I just got to figure out what size that is. Hopefully it's a 12. And it's not. Did we jump all the way up to 14? Nope. Well, tell me it's a 13. It is. Are we even threading? Did I get the right ones? Don't tell me I used the wrong pitch. Something doesn't feel right. 1.25. Yeah, 1.25 by 25. And my taps were the same. Maybe if I bear down on it, will this bear down while I turn it? I think that's biting now. Yeah, that's working. That's down. Solid. Next one. That one went better. Snug it up a little. These are lock nuts, so I don't have to worry about torquing them really good. So I'm just getting my hand on it and tightening it, basically hand tight, not getting the leverage of the end of the wrench. Okie doke. Put this back in place. I'll see if this slips right down in there. Yep. Let you see what I'm talking about. So the threads inside there are totally worn through. So this just drops in. It really needs retapping, but that's for another day. Let us do anything? No. So the only thing holding it is this one over here. Hook up our coils. Say, I never did unhook the battery, which you should always do when you're working on a car, but you know me. All the hoses are done. Everything's intact. So I'm inclined to start it even though I have all those metal shavings in there, just to make sure more oil gets pumped up here and all the metal shavings go down into the sump. And I've got to get it up on some ramps anyway, so I think I'm actually going to do that. So we're going to crank it up and put it on some ramps and change the oil. So you've seen me change the oil before, so I'm not going to go through all that, but I will bring you back to cut open the oil filter to see how much aluminum shards made it into the filter media. This is the one that has the aluminum in it. My filter cutter. There we go. Well, that one worked nicely. I think I see some sparkles in there. don't know if you can see that, but there's all kinds of sparkly goodies in there. Well, that just came right apart. That was supposed to be glued. Still, this is all held together with glue, so I gotta cut that off. So the outside is the dirty. I'll squeeze it out. Oh, can you see all those sparkles? Before I even squeeze anything out, it's just aluminum. It's falling out of there. Pretty decent bit of aluminum in there. Okay, that's it for today. Still a lot more Corolla repair videos coming, and we also have a first-gen CRV that we're going to be doing some work on. Oh, and don't forget, episode 45 is still in the works, so I hope y'all will stick around. As always, thank you for watching. Please comment below, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. I just wanted to thank you for that Valentine's gift you left me this morning. Happy Valentine's Day.